Okay, good morning, y'all. I want to start with perhaps a surprising discussion on the distinction between intrinsic and instrumental value. And by doing so, I'm going to use a specific example, and that is showing the both intrinsic and instrumental values of a philosophy degree. If you take from this anything, take that at least consider having another philosophy class next semester. And if you're convinced by the arguments here and the data here, perhaps consider taking multiple philosophy classes, perhaps consider majoring in philosophy, or even double majoring, or maybe minoring in philosophy. If anything, consider taking more philosophy classes. I embed this with our discussion here in ethics, specifically to address that very distinction that we'll see with utilitarian thinking. And it's something we looked at last time. We did see the difference between ends and means thinking, right? What is the difference between ends and means? What does the means sound like? And the phrase, the ends justify the means. What does that phrase mean? Yeah? No?
It's like the outcome justifies the execution.
The outcome justifies the path, the instrument, the way to get there. Exactly. Right? And that's basically what you find in general with utilitarianism. If we can show that the end, which is our goal, our intention to get to, the purpose of doing what we're doing, so that we get to that goal, if we can show that the ends will justify the means to get there, we've got a moral position supporting that view that those means, that instrument, whatever it was acceptable, morally speaking. I've mentioned this discussion of philosophy at the very beginning of the semester and the need to do it. I've never done this before. I've never spent a whole section. It's going to be brief, but I've never done a whole section on the instrumental value of philosophy. I suppose I've just gotten a little bit fed up. Every single semester, politicians, famous people, scientists, well-known people, sometimes people that I know and care about. In my previous school, it was the counseling department telling students, do not major in philosophy, or if you major in philosophy, these are your only options. And they were always just in education. It's true. You will have some opportunities in education with a degree in philosophy. But that's not all there is to it. It's confusing. It's incorrect, ultimately. And again, it's because philosophy is not required in high school. And so most people just don't know what it is. So I'm going to spend a few minutes discussing both the instrumental and intrinsic value of this discipline as it connects to our discussion of John Stuart Mill. So the title, Why Philosophy? The Value of Philosophy with Memes and Charts. There's going to be a lot of charts. There's a lot of links. The slides will be available to you in the module for this class. I start with this because this picture is representative of philosophy in just about every department of philosophy in the United States. It's Rodin's The Thinker, thinking about a major in thinking. That's clever. But this is not representative of philosophy because it makes it seem like what you do in philosophy is sit around and think in the nude, which is incorrect. Philosophers almost are always wearing clothes. I don't understand this. But it does represent in part what philosophy does. But if this is all you're doing, if all you're doing is thinking about things, if all you're doing is coming up with theories that are about the world but don't actually change the world, then it's unclear that you're benefiting society. I tie it with artificial intelligence. There's yet another image created by DALL-E. In this case, I asked it to give us an oil painting of an ancient philosopher at a computer. Bless you. I don't know if he's eating something here as he's on the computer. The reason I connected to this, in part because we've covered artificial intelligence already, and we addressed this a little bit, in part with our concern about the job opportunities in the near future. We've already moved through the past 15, 20 years, the automation of a number of particular jobs that perhaps was expected, and that's led to confusion in large sectors of what jobs will be available. Even within the next 10 years, it's not abundantly obvious what jobs are going to be automated, what jobs are going to be still, in a sense, open to the majority of people looking for employment. Our purpose here is to look at what jobs are insulated the best from automation, from artificial intelligence. We're not going to stop artificial intelligence. We're not going to stop the use of this technology to make businesses more efficient. And when you make businesses more efficient, that doesn't always mean it benefits everyone. It benefits those businesses, and perhaps it benefits the shareholders of those businesses, and that's as it should be. But a negative consequence is that it doesn't necessarily help the human beings involved. So part of what I want to talk about is what it is that philosophy can do that other disciplines might not be able to. And here's a robot, by the way. You can't automate walking that well. We can even do this, philosophers. Philosophers can walk and talk about philosophy, as Aristotle, we'll see, does quite well, the peripatetic philosopher. I'm joking, of course. Robots can now actually walk very well and even dance. I don't know if I've showed you that video before. So robots can do that probably better than philosophers. But I think if you get a major in philosophy, and there's a link here, there's a ton of links. I can't go through all of this with lots more detail. But in contrast to those who tell you all you can do with a philosophy degree is work at Starbucks, that's the meme that's gone around since I started teaching philosophy 20 years ago. You got a degree in philosophy. Well, good luck at Starbucks or whatever, some jackass will say. It's incorrect. It's simply dead wrong. And I'm going to start at the top. Here are jobs you can get with a philosophy degree. President of the United States. Told you, I'm starting high. Many presidents of the U.S. and other countries, heads of state, were philosophy majors. And they talk about the benefits of philosophy in their background. Supreme Court justices. And notice, too, the likelihood of a robot taking your job. Very low indeed. And there's links to describe how it is that they came to these calculations. Not surprisingly, being a philosopher is a decent job opportunity for a philosophy major. Interestingly, they distinguish philosopher from philosophy professor. I think that, I don't know what to think about that actually, but I'm not going to talk about it much. 3%. There's a 3% chance that my job will be automated within the next 10 years. High school teacher. These are all jobs that are applicable to and have funneled into from a philosophy degree. Elementary school teacher, political scientist, and notice the numbers, arbitrator, lawyer, politician, public service, and notice the 0% here. Librarian, 65%. I'm not entirely sure why that is. Maybe think about that. You could become a reporter, you could become an artificial intelligence analyst, probably already part machine in that one. And there's a lot more. There's a link there to give you a lot more information about how these are calculated. And if you want more information, other kinds of jobs you can get, there's cognitive scientist, market research analyst, marketing manager, writer, editor, literary critic, advertising sales agent, school principal, policy analyst, economist, software engineer, tech entrepreneur, nonprofit and social justice organization, school and career counselor, and a ton more. I've not listed all of them. If somebody tells you all you can do with philosophy is working, and working at Starbucks isn't, by the way, a terrible thing. First of all, it's meant to be a cut down, of course. I think that's a problem. But if anyone tells you all you can do with philosophy is work in education, which, again, not a terrible thing, it's simply misconstrued. It's confused. It's only partly and minimally correct. Because all of these are legitimate jobs. And all of these are, and you see some of the details of what is, where automation's going, and a lot more details with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the American Philosophical Association, and from our own counseling department here. Check this link out. What can I do with this major? There's a lot more jobs even than I've listed here that are tied to philosophy. Why is this? What further instrumental value does philosophy provide? Again, I've not done this before. I'm usually focusing on the intrinsic value. I'll talk about that more in a moment. but I'm going to focus on the instrumental value. And we know that this is something that's valuable. Recently we know this because employers have constantly been complaining for the past 15 or so years about not having the following qualities, characteristics in their workforce. Employers, but also professors in other disciplines are looking for these. And the most obvious one is critical thinking. This word has become so synonymous with education at every single level that to have a class that doesn't have that as a student learning outcome, something's gone wrong. But critical thinking is basically logic. It's a broader context, a broader term, a broader discipline if you want, than logic, but it still has, as you see with this link here, a history deeply embedded within philosophy. Critical thinking as a discipline comes out of philosophy and problem solving. Not surprisingly, logical analysis also, as you recall from our first weeks of class, logic is a central branch of philosophy where we look at the science of argumentation. Collaboration, teamwork, at least specifically to my classes, and I think others at this school, argument as convincing ourselves that something is true via collaborating with others. Philosophical argument is less interested in persuasion, getting you to do something that I want you to do, and more interested in convincing you that this belief is true or false. This makes a lot more sense to me than does achieving persuasion. Yesterday there was a public dispute, a debate among protesters on campus. Those who were pro-life and those who were pro-choice. I was not there, but I'm told it was not a civil discussion. It was not a matter of, here are my premises to support my conclusion. Now let's hear yours, and I'll see whether or not I should change my mind in light of your arguments. You can imagine what it was like, can't you? It was screaming, it was yelling, it was profanity-laced back and forth. That's an attempt at persuasion, in some cases using images that were graphic to try to make your point. Do you see? We're interested in constructing arguments, in collaborating with others, and we'll see as we continue on that all of these elements are found in philosophy classes in particular. Strong work ethic, oral and written communication skills. I'll give you some data on that in a moment. And the last thing I'm going to talk about with the role of humor and a humorous attitude as it's tied to a philosophical attitude with curiosity, flexibility, and creativity. And there's a bunch of links there to expand upon that. The point here, philosophy students learn how to think, not what to think. And that's essential since thinking clearly and logically is one of the most important transferable skills and immune to automation skills of the 21st century. Every employer is looking for this, something like that. And by the way, if you apply for a job and they say, we're not looking for somebody who can think clearly and logically, then don't work there. That's a problem. That's a red flag. Every legitimate employer is looking for somebody who has these skills. Now, the instrumental value of philosophy continues with respect to our disciplines and the sub-branches of philosophy, all of which we've covered, and now we're here with ethics today. But logic, the science of argumentation, we don't have computers were it not for logic. I think I discussed that at the beginning of the semester. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. That's important in anything where knowing things and knowing why or how we know something is relevant. I would suggest that's everything. Metaphysics on what there is, the study of ultimate nature of reality. And of course, ethics, what's the right thing to do and how do we know that, what kind of person we should be. All of these things, all these other disciplines rely upon some kind of philosophical thinking, some branch of philosophy that connects with truth, knowledge, consciousness, justice, and so on. This is embedded in every single discipline. And so even if you major in biology or political science or economics, a philosophy class benefits you. As this meme shows, this is philosophy, as it's sometimes referred to as the grandmother of all disciplines. There really aren't any of these other disciplines were they not to branch out of philosophy. The link here, of course, says don't smoke, even though, what's his name? Not Bat. Who's Spider-Man? No.
He's a Harry Potter guy.
Harry Potter, excuse me. Harry Potter, yes. He gets his magical furniture at Harry Pottery Barn. Wow. Edit that one out. Philosophy will benefit students in all other disciplines they might take, as it is an incredibly interdisciplinary field. There's other links there. Philosophy, a brief guide for undergraduates from the APA, American Philosophical Association, and the relevance of philosophy to any discipline. Now on to the charts. If you want to go to graduate school, philosophy is a pretty good major to have. Even if you don't want to go to graduate school, philosophy is a good major to have because it benefits you in quantitative reasoning, which is like math. Not surprisingly, math is way up there in quantitative reasoning in the graduate records exams. Where's philosophy? It's way down here. What is that, number 10, 12? But notice it's above accounting. It's above business administration. It is the highest of all non-STEM disciplines. There's not a non-STEM discipline near it. That's interesting. If you want to do well on your GREs, a degree in philosophy is not a bad idea. What about verbal reasoning with the graduate record exams? Verbal reasoning philosophy is at the top by a large margin. In fact, far more than English, which is second. And it's somewhat far behind, is it not? This data, and there's details about it, you can click on that link, you'll see more information about that. So if you're interested in doing well in the GRE or analytical writing, also philosophy, once again, pretty high on the charts. It's number 1 again, which is pretty impressive if that's what's interesting to you, or important to you. And the composite GRE scores, which compiles all of those quantitative, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing, philosophy is by far the most instrumentally valuable discipline branch of classes to major in, if those things are important to you. What if you want to go to management and business schools? Where's philosophy? It is 4th, behind physics, mathematics, and engineering. It's 4th. That's pretty high up. For business and management. Interestingly, where's business and management classes and degrees and majors? They're way down here. There's hotel administration, there's business education, there's management. Philosophy seems to be a better degree instrumentally with respect to that as your potential goal. So the GMAT scores, philosophy does pretty well. What about LSAT scores? If you're interested in going into law, philosophy is number 1. Just a little bit ahead of economics. Again, showing the instrumental value of this discipline. What about pre-med? As it turns out, philosophy as a degree to major in pre-med is in fact better than majoring in biology, which probably is surprising to you. It was for me, I have to say. 50% of philosophy majors were accepted to medical school, a much higher rate than, say, biology majors, which were at 40%. Philosophy majors make much more interesting applicants. Consider how many biology majors with a 4.0 apply to med school. In contrast, a successful philosophy major is thoroughly trained in a variety of useful skills, including critical thinking, ethical reasoning, intellectual history, both oral and written communication. In short, they tend to be well-rounded, well-educated students. This is certainly part of the reason that philosophy majors do well in medical school. And also, these particular successes here, these are, if you want, virtues or skills that are less likely to be automated. And if you're interested in money in general, philosophy is a pretty decent degree to accumulate money. It's instrumentally valuable in getting money. Looks like it's way down there. There it is, underneath nursing. It looks like it's in the middle of this chart. But this is only a small subset of possible degrees. Chemical engineering, computer engineering, physician assistant, and so on, those are at the top. But notice, philosophy's pretty high up there. Once again, among all of the non-STEM majors, it's the highest. It is the highest. And that's one chart. According to others, philosophy majors have the 4th highest median earnings at $81,200 per year, outranking business and chemistry majors, according to the Educational Testing Service. And according to mid-career salaries of non-STEM majors, philosophy is it's almost by far, it's ahead of business economics, it's ahead of marketing, it's ahead of international studies, and so on. It's instrumentally valuable. When someone tells you you're wasting your time in a philosophy class, don't get angry, like I tend to do. Don't do that. Have these charts with you. Show them to your family. When they ask you, what are you doing wasting your time with that silliness? Tell them the value economically. Tell them the practical, instrumental value. And there's a lot of data. It's just that people haven't looked into it, it seems. The Daily News is an excellent site that gives you a lot of information about the charts themselves, analyzing what they mean and debates about them. Philosophers love to debate things, and so philosophers will debate exactly what we're to take from those charts. If you're interested, I would encourage you to look into them. If you have time, there's also these readings that are relatively short, except this one. It's very long, but it's the best one. These are each about 5-minute reads. Be employable. Study philosophy. The Unexpected Way Philosophy Majors Are Changing the World of Business from the Huffington Post. Graduate with a philosophy degree? See here, there's more than Starbucks in your future. Why I think research in non-applied, non-interdisciplinary, non-historical philosophy is worthwhile. And then Good for Nothings, that's from the APA Presidential Address, from Susan Wolf, excellent philosopher. And then Love, Wisdom, and Wonder, 3 Reasons to Celebrate Philosophy. That focuses on the intrinsic value of philosophy, which I'll say a bit about in a moment. And then again, the instrumental value. I mentioned the Daily News. They have a section called Philosophers On, a series in which philosophers, contemporary philosophers, talk about things that are relevant in the news today. Philosophers on the abortion debate. Philosophers on the war in the Ukraine. Philosophers on gun rights, Second Amendment. Philosophers on Black Lives Matter. Philosophers on and so forth. Contemporary philosophers applying the tools of logic, reason, epistemology, metaphysics, and of course ethics to real-world situations, to real-world issues, dilemmas that are relevant to us now. In general, philosophy is the love of wisdom, and in general, it is a disciplined, formal method in search for truth in the most general sense for the sake of truth. I think that gives us the instrumental value, and also it's intrinsically valuable. It's also an open and critical attitude or a way of being characterized by a sense of genuine curiosity and wonder. That's an intrinsic value. And I think that's what most people, when they hear philosophy, they think of, oh, well, that's great for you to have time and maybe independent wealth, that you can just think about things and ponder things. Great for you. No. It's potentially great for anyone who takes a degree in philosophy. I'm not of the opinion that it's only for a few. It has intrinsic value for these reasons, which we'll come back to when I look again at the connection between a humorous and a philosophical attitude. But in both cases, this philosophical attitude, when it's habituated, cultivates collaborative and critical thinking, willingness to question what we assume without argument. We call those presuppositions. A genuine curiosity about what it means to be a human being, fosters an interest in the truth for the sake of truth, and it allows us to see how fun and interesting life can be, like when we were kids, but without the naivete and the disinclination to eat anything but sugar. Still dealing with my kids on that matter. The sense of wonder is the mark of the philosopher. Philosophy indeed has no other origin, says Socrates. And that wonder is this. It is true. I love this anonymous quote from a tea bag. That's where I first got it, but it seems right to me. Childhood would be an ideal state if only it happened later in life. And look, you see Milo there. He's like he's stoned because it is 4:20. I'm told that I believe we're required to be so right now. I'm kidding. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. But everything is of interest. Everything is, even rice, they're just playing with rice and it's of interest to them. The creative minds of a child you can't match it. The kind of joy that kids get in learning new things It could get sucked out of them the longer they get sucked into a certain kind of educational system. But the ideal is a kind of attitude toward life that is childlike, but without that naivete. So in a way, philosophy, as this link here will show, philosophy is a form of play for grown-ups and means to achieve, let's say, a second childhood, but later in life. And I think that would be intrinsically valuable. And there's one last note. If, as philosopher Daniel Dennett puts it, you become a philosopher, you'll be able to read anything you want and call it work. And you see here how happy he is. There's my argument. That's a philosopher. He's happy. Therefore, you should be a philosopher too. Because happiness is important. Questions on the intrinsic or instrumental value of philosophy? Any?
How long does it take to get the Porsche?
Whew. How long does it take to get the Porsche with a philosophy degree? Well, let's go back to the charts. How much do where is it? How much do Porsches cost?
Making $84,000 a year.
Yeah, well, that's the median. You can make more.
Yeah. But what if you're just a median type person?
Well, if you're a philosophy major, you're already not that. Not all philosophy professors have Porsches.
Yeah, some of them.
Most of them ride their bicycles, like I did today, and consumed a number of bugs. They got into my face. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, there you have it.